You have the fiery serpents that bring death to the Israelites. And then at the end, there is one who is like unto him, but greater, who is put on a pole and overcomes death for everyone who looks upon him.
There's this tension among some commentators. They say, Jesus is not the serpent. The comparison is in the lifting up. Don't try to equate him with the serpent, because if you do, you'll just get confused. Satan is the serpent. Snake's bad. Jesus good. Not the same.
Boys, we're back. This is so much better than shooting guns and blowing stuff up.
We can do both.
We're just sitting here studying the scriptures together, and we're learning things as we have these conversations. Welcome everybody to another episode on the Stick of Joseph YouTube channel. Finally, the boys are back in town, and we are all together. Once again, this feels real good. I'm excited.
This is the first day I haven't shaved in 8 months.
And I can tell. Holy cow, you look awful.
Yeah,
right?
Look at that. He's got a couple.
Give me 3 days, I've got a
hairs.
massive beard, dude.
No, so we're really excited to be back. It's been awesome. I appreciate all the comments on the last video that we did of you guys welcoming us home. We're pumped to be back in the studio doing awesome content, and today is going to be one of those days.
Yeah, today we decided to make a pivot on the channel, and we're going to kind of talk just about animal life. And today we're talking about serpents and snakes and stuff. But no, from the beginning, from the outset of the Bible, it seems as though the serpent is a representation of the not so good side of the world, Satan, right? He deceives and beguiles Eve. But then further on in the book, we get some examples that show that maybe Christ is also a symbol of the serpent, or the symbol of the serpent is Christ. And so, Mike and Dave, I assume you've done what you always do best, and you've come prepared to give some clarity and understanding to why Jesus is represented as a snake.
Snake.
Yeah. Shall I introduce this book?
Sure.
Which I will hold up carefully.
Very carefully.
This has a saucy cover, so I'm holding it up with my hand over the front.
Medieval art.
It is a serious work of biblical scholarship with a classical painting on the front that is a woman with a big snake draped over her shoulders, but not so much shirt draped over her torso. So I am holding up my hand here.
Thank you.
This is called The Good and Evil Serpent by James H. Charlesworth. You might know his name. There's a 2-volume collection of pseudepigrapha that a lot of people have. I bought it back in college. It's sort of the standard collection that's got, First Enoch and the 12 patriarchs and whatever, right? And if you look, this is the same Charlesworth that edited that collection.
Yeah, I think most people probably got that.
Yeah,
like when they graduated elementary school or whatever.
What pseudepigrapha am I going to buy?
Exactly.
Psychoed.
I need a collection, and then I can't get it. It's basically like a 1-volume, but 2-volume.
Yeah.
So this is a book about serpent imagery. Really, his point of departure is John 3, in which Jesus compares himself to the Nehushtan. Should we actually start by reading that verse?
Yeah.
What is it, 3:14? So Nicodemus, this is the conversation with Nicodemus, and we all remember except a man be born again of the Spirit, right? That's like verses 3-5. That's not where the conversation ends. So it goes on a little bit, and I want to say it's in 14. Is that right?
Yeah. If you don't mind, I'm going to start in 13 because it kind of sets the stage. It says, in John 3:13, it says, and no man hath ascended up to heaven, but he that came down from heaven, even the Son of Man which is in heaven. And as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up. And whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have eternal life.
Yeah. So this is a volume in the Anchor Bible Dictionary. So this is it's now it's Doubleday, but it's jointly published with Yale now, and it is effectively a commentary or an attempt to understand that verse. And for starters, there's a wonderful comment in there where Charlesworth says, I went and looked at, he says, basically every commentary on John I could find. I think he says thousands, okay? He's not reading the whole commentaries. He's looking at what they say about this one verse, right? And he says, all but one or two, the commentator talks about, this is a verse about raising up. He says what none of them notice is that the passage it's referring to, the story where Moses puts a serpent on a pole in Numbers 21 doesn't use raising up at all. That's not in Numbers. And so the commentators sit there and talk about the fact of Moses raising up, and actually it's not there. And only one or two of those thousands of commentaries had any comment about Jesus comparing himself
to a snake.
Right? And the point is that we have these cultural blinders on that say, well, we couldn't possibly, like, that isn't the comparison. I mean, snakes are the evil force.
Yeah.
Right? Jesus wouldn't do that. And so there's just a giant gaping void of silence in the commentaries.
Yeah.
Right? Now, it's super interesting.
Can we go ahead? I actually, unless this is going to completely derail it, I'd love to read the verses in Numbers 21. I got it pulled up here. And we can read what that story says for people that aren't completely familiar with it and kind of jump off from there. Is that all right?
Yeah, this is, boy, order is going to be interesting today.
Because it will kind of help us define some terms, because we're going to want to talk about what a seraphim is.
Yes.
It's talking about fiery serpents here, so it might be a good place. So,
and I want to just throw this out here too. Like, knowing where this is coming from is really critical in my view. So before we even read it, and we've talked about this before, and it's not just one or two scholars that are acknowledging this. Many biblical scholars are acknowledging that the Old Testament is coming from different traditions.
is this one of your slides?
Sort of. Okay, so one of the traditions is that the North kept records. Another tradition is that the South kept records, and the North is typically called E for the Elohists, and the South is called J for the Yahwists. The Book of Mormon, my contention is, and I'm not alone in this, is that the brass plates are coming from the North. Okay, these guys are from Joseph. These guys are from Manasseh. These guys, Joseph and Manasseh, the tribe of Ephraim, they're in charge of the North. So the Book of Mormon, in my view, is a northern record. Guess where Numbers 21 with the story of the serpent is going to come from?
From the north.
From the north.
Okay.
The Book of Mormon has 4 references to this imagery.
Okay.
And so the Book of Mormon authors, this is important to them, and it's preserved in the northern text. So this is stuff outside of maybe our conversation, but I think it's important because, in my view, it lends credibility to the Book of Mormon. I'm always going to come back to, okay, does this triangulate anywhere with the Book of Mormon? But I want to have that as a side in the back of our head as we get into this and read this stuff.
Nice.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right, so
let's read it. So where do you want me to start?
I got right here, verse 5. And
Okay, so
I'm going to comment on this a little bit because I don't know what translation you got up there, but if it's the King James, it lies.
Oh, does it?
Yes.
Classic King James.
I have recently come to learn the New Revised Standard Version is worse, actually.
which app is this, Dave? Because I like this. I want to get
This is Mecco and Mamre. It's just their website.
Okay, good.
So I'm looking at the Hebrew and the
Yeah,
English
why
side
don't
by
you
side.
read it then?
Well, because it won't match what anybody's version is. If that's the King James, we should read
So
that. but
I'll read it.
We read it, and then
I'll
you
read
give
King
comment.
James, you give comments
Yeah.
as we
Yeah.
go. Is that cool?
That's cool.
All right. So verse 5, we'll start in verse 5. So right now, for those, context is they are just by Mount Horeb. They're traveling through the wilderness after escaping through the Red Sea away from the Egyptians. It says, and the people spake against God and against Moses. Therefore, have ye brought us out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no bread, neither is there any water, and our soul loatheth this light bread. And the Lord sent fiery serpents.
Now, fiery serpents here is 2 words. It's Nachashim, which is serpents, and it's Seraphim, which means burning ones, fiery ones.
Okay. And the Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people, and much people of Israel died. Therefore people came to Moses and said, we have sinned, for we have spoken against the Lord and against thee. Pray unto the Lord that he take away the serpents from us. And Moses prayed for the people.
So the serpents here. This is interesting. It's just a curiosity to me. This has been true in every translation I've seen. Translates serpents as plural, but actually what it says is take away the serpent.
Okay.
Take away singular nachash, not nachashim.
Okay, pray unto the
Oddly
Lord
enough.
that he take away the serpent from us. And Moses prayed for the people. And the Lord said unto Moses, make thee a fiery serpent.
This is the
What does
lie.
that say?
Okay,
This
what
is
is
the
that
lie.
really? Okay.
Because and it's super interesting, and what it says is make a seraph.
Okay.
It just says make a
fiery
burning one.
one.
It just says make a burning one.
Doesn't say anything about a
It
serpent.
doesn't say serpent at all. And the translators assume that's what he means. But commentators look at this and very commonly say, okay, the instruction from God to Moses is, right? Moses says, I have a problem. People are dying from snake bite. God says, make a seraph. That's the answer, right?
one.
Make a seraph, and my translation here says, and set it upon a pole. And it shall come to pass that everyone that is bitten when he seeth it shall live. Right? The command is not make a snake; it's make a seraph.
Is this going to be your connection to Isaiah 6, basically?
We should go to Isaiah. Well, again, it's not my connection, right? Commentators routinely say, okay, so what does a seraph? This is why commentators say, what does a seraph look like? We think it was a snake. Because God says to Moses, make a seraph, and let's look what he
And
does.
then
What
later
does
on in verse 9,
Yep,
and
verse
Moses
9.
made a serpent of brass.
And here he does say
put it on a pole.
Nachash. He made a Nachash. There's a pun here. He made a Nachash of Nechoshet, right? So
What's
brass
Nechoshet? Oh, okay.
or copper, same word, sounds like snake in Hebrew.
And I remember when I was studying this a while back when you were writing in the language of Adam.
Yeah.
I was just like digging into all this stuff. What's the Hebrew word for kiss?
It's Neshek.
Neshek.
Yeah.
So but it's just like Nahash, Neshek, and then
and also
and bite,
that also means snake bite is
and
kiss
bite
and bite are the same word.
the
That's what
same
we're looking
word,
for
right?
here.
And
Yeah.
so like it's just like there's all this weird wordplay between kiss, bite.
Dude, that is the whole Bible.
brass,
The Hebrew
snake.
By the
prophetic
way, the
tradition.
bite also is, I think it was either in Charlesworth or somebody else talks about going into debt.
Yeah, it's
if
also
you get
it's
the
interest.
snake bite, you go into debt.
The bite is also interest.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the instruction is we got a problem. Okay, the problem is death. Okay, it's in the person of the serpent, but the problem is death, and the answer to death is God says to Moses, put a seraph on a pole. And here's the point about raising up. He doesn't raise nothing. Moses here doesn't raise anything. He puts a serpent on a pole, right? Raising up is entirely an artifact of the New Testament.
Okay.
So
And the Book of Mormon.
we can. Well, I think that's correct. So we can take a look at that.
But by being a pole, he sets it so it's raised. But this idea that you're talking about is some people get into the verbs.
My point is the commentators,
Yeah, the
on
commentators.
John,
Yeah.
the New Testament, have all focused on the comparison of Jesus was raised up like the snake was raised up,
Exactly.
but actually in numbers the snake is not raised up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, and those
instead of
commentators
focusing
aren't
on
looking at the
Jesus
Book of
and the
Mormon.
serpent being
They want
connection, they
so
just do the
bad
raise up.
not to look at Jesus and the serpent that instead they look at raising up.
Yeah.
Right.
So they kind of miss it.
Yeah,
That's
so
important.
So here's the so this is the background, right? So one, the problem is death. The answer is this serpent. Two, the serpent seems to be a seraph. Again, this is not Dave's invention. This is a standard kind of commentator observation. Oh, what does a seraph look? Well, we see lots of serpent images and sort of divine serpents and winged serpents in iconography of the region.
Yeah.
This is the passage that says this. We should connect those winged serpents to snakes, right, or to seraphim. So let's look at Isaiah 6. Okay, so we know there is a we know in the Old Testament there is a serpent that solves the problem of death, right, and that's the seraph that Moses. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Puts on a pole.
Bless you, Dave.
Okay, so in Isaiah 6, we get another serpent.
Verse
So
6.
this is understood to be Isaiah's vision of his call, right? And it explicitly happens in the temple. And Isaiah sees the Lord, Adonai, sitting on a throne, there is smoke, and above the Lord, it really starts in verse 2.
Okay, yeah. So he sees the Lord in verse 1 sitting upon his throne, so that and his train filled the temple. So he's in the temple. He says that.
Right.
Then verse 2.
Above him, I'm reading the Mecho and Mamre translation. I'm going to be slightly different from what you're looking at. Above him stood the seraphim. Each one had 6 wings. With twain he covered his face, and with twain he covered his feet, and with twain he did fly. Now, a couple of comments. So, one, seraphim is plural, so there are at least 2. Okay,
And this is burning ones. Like above him
and
were
this
the
is
burning ones.
this is seraphim here is not a translation; it's a transliteration.
It's a transliteration.
Like that's what it just says. It says the seraphim. And what it means is burning ones. It's the same word that in Numbers 21:8, right? God says, "Make a burning one."
Yep.
And what
And he
Moses
makes a
does is
serpent.
make a snake.
Right here, you can read it. Above it stood the serpents, the burning serpents, each one with 6 wings. So these are
this is
winged
what commentators
serpents.
routinely say: is that these are winged serpents. There's more than one. J.J.M. Roberts, in his commentary on First Isaiah, as part of the Hermeneia series, says that it says not only are these winged serpents, but that we should that this is probably the Nehushtan. So in other words, this vision, we're seeing vision stuff, and we're seeing things that are physically in the temple. We're seeing the throne of God, which is the Ark of the Covenant. We see clouds of smoke, which is the clouds of incense coming from the altar in the second room. And when we see these, we ought to see. We ought to understand that there are Nehushtanim here in the temple, which there are. It's Hezekiah who breaks them, right? And 2 Kings 18:4 says, until the time during Isaiah's lifetime, that there are Nehushtanim, and that the people of Israel, it says they burn incense before them, okay?
Yeah.
Or they sacrifice before them, but it's maktir is the verb, which is burning sacrifice. It's sacrifice with smoke, incense. Okay.
Just a thought, just to throw out here, and I don't know if I'm right. I'm just thinking, I see visually. Imagine you're seeing a divine being. It's a burning one. Joseph Smith said that God dwells in everlasting burnings. So Nechoshet, brass, Nahash, serpent, you can kind of hear how they kind of sound similar. There are commentators that say this idea, this word for brass, is reflective of this idea of shining, of being brilliant. And so almost like a being from another world.
Yeah.
And so in my mind's eye, and this is just Mike Day Midrash, I could be way off, but this idea of a Nechoshet Nahash, this idea of a brilliant burning serpent, imagery of a being from another world. That's what you have in Genesis. You have this being from another world that comes to Eve and says, I am also a son of God. You have this in Moses, where Moses sees this being from another world. It's clearly not God.
Yeah.
And the first thing out of his mouth is, I also am a son of God. And his first question is, well, then where's your glory? Right? And so it's just this idea that when he's making whatever it is he's making and he's setting on a pole, I do think it's a serpent, right? It's communicating something else. It's communicating a being from another world. Now, in the Book of Mormon, there's four references. Maybe we'll talk about it today. But in one of the references, the author says, when Moses sets this up, he's pointing them to the Messiah, which is going to save them. And then he drops this reference. He says, and so did all the other prophets. It's just it's almost like he's parenthetically just mentioning this, and then he gets back to the story.
Yeah.
But that's important.
For sure. So, okay, so these burning serpents can represent beings from another world. So it's interesting because you have the fiery serpents that bring death, right? That bring death to the Israelites.
Right.
And then at the end there is one who is like unto him, but greater, who is
Overcomes
put on a pole and overcomes death for everyone who looks upon him.
So I want to get back eventually into the Eden story.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
But for now, let me just sort of recap and then kind of talk about this.
Yeah.
In the Old Testament, okay, and people like Isaiah 6 is thought to be 8th century. There's no one saying, oh, this is really written in the 3rd century BC. This is old stuff.
Yeah.
Okay? 700s BC. And Numbers 21. This is old stuff. So Numbers 21, we know that a serpent brings death. The solution to it is also a serpent, but it's a special kind of serpent. It's a saraf. It's a seraph. It's a fiery one. Okay. Here we see seraphs again, okay, and again, J.J.M. Roberts, other commentators think, well, actually, probably, since this is a vision built on physical things in the temple, probably it is Nehushtan. It's the serpent on a pole,
yeah.
And probably that means there's more than one of them, okay? Now, before we read on in verses, let's just notice what verse 2 says. It says, the serpent stood, it's mima'al, it's above him. Okay, now the him referent is referring to the Lord. It could be referring to the throne, okay? But it is, because Isaiah is in first person, isn't he? Yeah, then said I. So what does that mean? It means the serpents, the seraphim are coming down out of the Holy of Holies. Okay? So they're coming down out of the Holy of Holies. Above him stood the seraphim. Verse 2 says, each one had 6 wings. This is going to be interesting when we get to our reading of the Eden scene. Okay, each one had 6 wings. With twain he covered his face, and with twain he covered his feet, and with twain he did fly. Commentators will often say that, this is a serpent that has feet. That may or may not be true, because commentators will also say that feet may be a euphemism for his private parts. For his loins, exactly.
So essentially you're seeing a 6-winged serpent. I'm just trying to imagine this.
Right.
6-winged serpent, one of the sets of wings covering his face.
And then one down.
One, his loins, and then the other one he's flying
Exactly.
with.
One up, one
So maybe
down.
the middle wing. The middle wings he's flying, the bottom ones he's covering his loins.
That might be right.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, because that may tell us what the Nehushtan actually looked like.
Yeah.
Right?
Strange. Which is it's a strange looking creature from that. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So verse 3 now.
So verse 3, and one called unto another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts, and the whole earth is full of his glory. So this is one seraph calling to the other, right? So the seraphs, again, there's more than one of them. So maybe there's more than one serpent on a pole inside the temple.
Yeah.
We'll come back then. We talk about Eden, and they're singing to each other. The posts of the door were moved at the voice of them that called, and the house was filled with smoke. This is a physical thing that is taking a role in the vision. It is the smoke of the incense altar, which is in the second room of the temple.
Yep.
Then said I, woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips, for mine eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. So Numbers 21, the problem is death.
Yep.
The solution is the special serpent, the burning serpent. If you turn to it, you are saved from death. Okay? Isaiah 6, the problem is sin.
Yeah.
I am undone. I'm a man of unclean lips. The people have unclean lips.
Yeah.
What's the solution? The solution is again the serpent. It's the same serpent. Then flew unto me one of the seraphim with a glowing stone in his hand, which King James says a coal, which he had taken from with the tongs from off of the altar. So the serpent does seem to have hands. May or may not have feet, does seem to have hands.
Yeah.
And he touched my mouth with it and said, Lo, this hath touched thy lips, and thine iniquity is taken away, and thy sin expiated. Right? So Isaiah's problem in Isaiah 6 is he has sin. The solution is the same as the solution to death, which is that a serpent comes. But here you don't look at the serpent. The serpent cleanses you with fire.
And the thing that's really interesting, going back to the whole bite and kiss thing, like he puts the coal on his lips.
Yep. Yeah.
Right? And so it seems like Isaiah essentially kisses the coal, and that purges him of his sins.
It's also this idea, perhaps this idea that when you put something in you, you're changed. This idea of in the temple they're eating something.
Yeah.
So he's putting something in him, and it changes his nature. I think one of the things I see Dave doing here, and there's this tension among some commentators. I've seen people struggle with this, and here's the tension. And I've seen this among Latter-day Saint commentators. They say Jesus is not the serpent.
Except he says so.
Except for he says
Jesus is not the serpent because the comparison is in the lifting up. This is the argument that I hear. Don't try to equate him with the serpent because if you do, you'll just get confused. Satan is the serpent. That snake's bad, Jesus good, not the same. Right.
Yeah.
And so their statement is because the serpent was lifted up, that's what we need to focus on. But what Dave is doing, and I hope that I'm explaining this well, is that in Isaiah 6, there's clearly this snake imagery that has something to do with overcoming sin.
And in the Holy of Holies. Why are they put... If the serpent was specifically supposed to be that which is evil, how could it dwell in the presence of God in the Holy of Holies?
Which is the Garden of Eden.
Which is the Garden of
Eden. And what Charlesworth is doing is he says, listen, I'm going to just look at stuff. I'm going to survey all the landscape of ancient symbolism. And there's a line in his book, and I don't have it memorized, but I remember I highlighted it in his book because it was just so powerful, where he said, we have to get out of our modern world, and we have to understand how the ancients saw stuff. And if we can get into their world and understand how they saw this stuff, then we can see the scriptures with new eyes. That's essentially what he's saying. I can try and find the quote while we're talking, but
that's a great,
it's a powerful
quote for the whole enterprise of trying to understand the scripture overall.
It really is.
We need to not be blinkered by what people have misunderstood in the past, right?
We stand upon layer after layer after layer of cultural rubble and cultural interpretation of text, and some of the times we get it right, a lot of times we get it wrong. And so if we can go down to how did Isaiah see this stuff? How did Nephi see this stuff? And what I love, and this is, I'm going to make this plug for the Book of Mormon, one of the hence your show, The Stick of Joseph, one of the things that makes the Book of Mormon relevant to this discussion is the Book of Mormon is showing us 7th century BC views of the serpent that we don't have. And so it may seem weird to the people walking around in 1829 that read the Book of Mormon. They may have not even paused to think about why are there 4 references to this. But if we read Charlesworth and we read some of these things, Isaiah 6, for example, and Numbers 21, we start to see, no, maybe there's something to this stuff. And we can just go, that's interesting. But another way we can look at it is this is an evidence that the Book of Mormon is doing something that no 23-year-old in the 19th century who deals with farm tools would even begin to even think to ask the question, let alone write about it.
For sure. And before Dave says something really smart, I just want to point out that so much of our understanding of the scriptures is based on interpretations that have been passed down to us. This is us as Latter-day Saints as well. That's why one of my greatest, if I could do, I would love to be able to erase my brain of any teaching of the Bible, of the Book of Mormon, and read it anew, because I feel like we miss so much. Because, for example, and we're going to talk about the Garden of Eden story in a little bit, there is no equating the serpent in the garden with Satan. With the devil in the garden. Now, I'm not saying he's not.
No, the Jewish commentators love talking about this. It doesn't say Satan in there.
It doesn't say it in there. And so, that's something, I'm not saying it's a wrong interpretation, but we have to understand that it's not in the text. It is an interpretation that we have accepted, full stop.
Well, what's important to recognize about that is in the Moses account, it doesn't even say, it talks about Satan being affiliated with the serpent more clearly, but it doesn't even say that Satan represents the serpent. It says, and now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field. This is in Moses 4, which I, the Lord God, had made. And Satan put it into the heart of the serpent, for he had drawn away many after him. And he sought also to beguile Eve, for he knew not the mind of God. So it's like Satan is possessing the serpent in this scenario.
Let's come back to Eden. At the end, I want to talk about Eden. Let me make a couple points here. So, 1, Christ compares himself to the serpent. Is he saying something meaningful? Turns out, yes, because in the Old Testament, in the Hebrew Bible, there is a problem of death posed, and the solution is a serpent. And there is a problem of sin posed, and the solution seems to be the same serpent, and that is the serpent he is comparing himself to. So it's not some iniquitous, confusing, difficult comparison. Israel's sacred stories knew a serpent that healed, that purified from sin and saved you from death. And that's the serpent he's comparing himself to.
Yeah.
Okay? So that's thing one. By the way, thing 1B, we have a tendency, and this is going to push back a little bit against some of the things you guys were just saying now, but we'll come back to it again later. Mm-hmm. We have a tendency in our modern culture to kind of think, oh, the rabbinical understanding of the Old Testament is always superior to the early Christian one. Mm-hmm. The early Christians, man, they were an aberration. They were getting it wrong. They were trying to nail some kind of Hellenistic city god cult onto the Old Testament, and they didn't understand it. There's no reason to think that that's the case. Mm-hmm. Okay? That there's a mental model there which says, okay, here during the first temple period we have Judaism, and then in the second temple period we have Judaism, and then the rabbis are still Judaism, and Christianity breaks off and it's something weird. Mm-hmm. And that's not accurate. It's not close. In the first temple period, we have lots of different kinds of belief. The Old Testament shows us the fights between people who believe different things. Mm-hmm. None of those things are Judaism that we would recognize today. Mm-hmm. So some scholars will go out of their way to call them other things. So sort of amusingly, I'm forgetting his name now. There's an Italian scholar whose history of the Second Temple I just read, Carlo something, who refers to the religions of the First Temple as Hebraism.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's not Judaism. Then in the Second Temple, again, you have multiple different religions that are all kind of derived from the different religions of the First Temple, and they're still in dialogue. They're disagreeing, they're fighting, they're compromising, they're sharing scriptures. They have different scriptures, right?
Different interpretations.
And most of these different forms of Hebrew religion at some point cease to exist, or they turn into something else. And then after the fall of Jerusalem, we get rabbinical Judaism, but we also get things like Karaite Judaism, and we get the Mandeans, and we get Christianity and the Gnostics, and those are all different descendants, right? So to pick one of those descendants and go, well, they are right in all their understanding is nonsense. So we should take seriously what the Christians seem to say. And what the Christians have Jesus, what John the Evangelist has Jesus doing is comparing himself to a divine being that comes out of the Holy of Holies that solves for sin and death.
Gee, I wonder who that is.
That actually makes a lot of sense. Okay? It's not stupid.
That's it.
So we should pay attention to what the first Christians thought.
And I'm going to throw this out there. We're back to E and J. A lot of the Bible's edited by the Southern Kingdom. The E text, the Northern text, is a minority report. We don't have a ton of it. And what is the Book of Mormon? The Book of Mormon is a Northern tribal report of how they read stuff. And Nephi, when he's reading it, he says, I got stuff that you Gentiles aren't going to have in your Bible.
Yeah.
Numbers 21 is an E-text. This is Friedman. I think it's in the slide deck, but if it isn't, I'll give it to you guys, where it's in his book, The Bible with the Sources Revealed, where he shows you in Numbers 21, listen, this is a report from the North.
Okay. Yeah, you're talking about Friedman?
Richard Elliott Friedman, yeah. I think I got a slide in here.
I have a slide here. I can pop it up real quick.
Picture of his face where he looks very serious.
You want me to read it real quick?
No. Well, this is maybe a little bit more detailed, where he gets into, okay, what's going on when Hezekiah destroys what he destroys, and what's going on with Josiah when he destroys what he destroys. I didn't know if we were going to get this detailed in our discussion, but on one of my slides, and I may have destroyed it in my editing, he basically says, look, listen, the Numbers 21 is coming out of the North.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't see it. I don't see it in the slide deck, but I'll. Oh, I got it right here.
What slide is it?
Well, one of the slides is the one with the Pharaoh on it.
Yep. Right here.
That's from the
Bronze Serpent.
That's from the Jewish Study Bible, but looks like I didn't. Looks like I lost it, but I'll get it to you. But it's in the Bible with Sources Revealed. He basically says, listen, this is a northern text.
Yeah.
But like I said, we can get really detailed into like, why does Hezekiah do what he does, and why does Josiah do what he does? Because they destroy different things related with the temple. One of the things the Bible is telling us, and I'm just going to paint with a broad brush because it could get really nerdy really fast, is that people in charge over the period of the biblical history are destroying stuff from the temple that doesn't jive with their theological perspectives. So Hezekiah is doing it in Isaiah's day, right? 740 BC-ish. And then Josiah is doing it in his day, 640 to 609 BC. They're doing different things. The Book of Mormon is showing us both. The Book of Mormon is showing us, okay, look, here's the stuff Josiah destroyed. We're going to talk about it. We're going to bring it back into sacred space. Here's the stuff Hezekiah destroyed, which is our conversation today, the Nehushtan 10. The Book of Mormon is going to say, listen, we're going to bring that back. Both of them are going to point us to Jesus.
Okay.
So the Book of Mormon is doing what Dave's talking about, which is this. There's multiple religious groups in Lehi's day, multiple religious groups in 740 BC. The Book of Mormon represents a specific strand of these guys that happen to see these symbols and say, that's Jesus Christ, the Messiah, who's going to come down and conquer sin and death. And then they carry their record forward. It's a specific group. What Dave's also saying is that the Christians who arise in the first century, they're coming out of some of these groups. And they're saying, listen, we're reading the same scriptures you Jews are reading, but we see Jesus in it.
Jesus in it. Okay,
right?
so
is that making sense?
Yeah,
kinda?
let me try to give a summary of where we're at so far, and then let's move forward with what Dave has next. So, traditional understanding of serpent, bad, Satan. We have the story in John 3 where Jesus compares himself to the serpent lifted up on a pole. We read that story. It's talking about these fiery serpents using this seraph. God tells him to make a seraph. He puts a serpent on a pole. Then we go to this temple vision in the Holy of Holies with Isaiah, where he is looking upon these the seraphim, these seraphs, these fiery ones, serpents on a pole, which we are positing are serpents, and they are the ones who purge him of his sin. And so what we are seeing is that this motif of a serpent is not just a motif of the evil, snaky one that's trying to trick you into doing bad things, but also of this healing being that will purge you of your sins and allow you to stay in the Holy of Holies.
Yeah, the Christians knew what they were talking about. That part of the religion of ancient Israel was this image of a divine being, a fiery serpent, that you could look upon and live, and who would purify you of sin with fire, right? There's one other, and I referenced it, but let's just add it for completeness. In the Bible, there's one additional reference to this serpent on a pole, and it's in 2 Kings 18:4, and it's when Hezekiah breaks it to pieces. And let's just make this one observation. Are you pulling it up to read?
Yeah, I'll pull it up right now.
So that's good. Let's do that, because what Hezekiah seems to say is the people have gone wrong because they are burning incense in front of the Nehushtan.
Which Isaiah, it looks like Isaiah was doing
This
that.
is exactly correct.
So sorry, which is it for?
Yeah, so Hezekiah removed the high places and break the images and cut down the groves and break in pieces the brazen serpent that Moses had made. For unto those days the children of Israel did burn incense to it, and he called it Nehushtan. By the way, so one thing is, the name Nehushtan seems to be the name that Hezekiah applies to it. And it seems to be probably meant to be insulting.
Yeah.
Snaky thing, brassy thing, right? So we should just remember, we don't know what name
They actually had.
people who liked it called it, right? Something else, maybe. So unto those, so this seems to be the statement of the problem. Why did he break it? Unto those days the children of Israel did burn incense to it. And so the sort of conventional reading is, okay, this was Moses created it. It was a tool that, God wanted to use to heal the Israelites, but then they made mistakes and they burned incense in front of it and therefore had to be destroyed. And exactly as you were saying, Isaiah 6 seems to show Isaiah encountering the Nehushtanim, two of them, in the presence of clouds of incense. And so you have this sort of this is what I'm saying. The Old Testament has multiple. It's not two. It's multiple religions. Zion Itzavit wrote about the religions of ancient Israel, right? And there seems to be a direct conflict here
between Hezekiah and Isaiah, who they lived at the same time. So it's almost like this is so interesting because, especially coming from those who believe in the Book of Mormon, where we have an explicit
That's where
commandment.
I want to go to the Book of Mormon next.
A specific commandment from Jesus when he appears to the Nephites to read the words of Isaiah. And so you have Isaiah, who lives at the time of Hezekiah. He seems to be one of the children of Israel who are burning incense to the Nehushtan.
Isaiah seems to be.
Because these clouds of incense,
the clouds of smoke are filling the temple.
When he is being called to a prophet. And right after, we didn't read these verses, right after the Lord says, "Who shall I send?" And Isaiah says, "Here am I, send me."
Here am I. Yeah.
Right? And so I love this because those who claim that the canon is perfect and sufficient don't understand that the canon doesn't agree perfectly and sufficiently with the theology.
It's difficult to maintain that position if you actually read the Bible.
Yeah.
So it's just worth counting, right? So in the Hebrew and Greek Bible together, we have 4 apparent references, three clear, and probably a 4th reference to the Nehushtan, right? There's Numbers 21, there's 2 Kings 18, there's John 3, and probably there's Isaiah 6, okay? So there's 4. So it turns out that in the Book of Mormon, there are 4 more, okay?
Almost 5.
And it's I'm curious here, almost 5, but hold on.
Yeah.
I want to come back to that. So, and I don't remember where they're off the top of my head, but one is where it's 1 Nephi 17 or 18, where
2 Nephi 25, 1 Nephi 17, Alma 33. And
I have them all pulled up.
Okay, there we go. So,
1 Nephi 17.
I was going to be more approximate, but very good. Those are the references.
This is my chart that we didn't get you guys, so I've got it right here. I've got a chart of the references.
Right.
Cool.
Now, in all 4 of the references the Nephite prophets make, okay, first of all, in all 4 of them, the reference, the interpretation of the Nehushtan is positive.
Yep.
It is also explicitly connected to Jesus.
Every time.
Every time. Which is to say, the Nephites seem to share the same understanding as John the evangelist, right? That there is this image, part of our patrimony, the snake that saves from sin and from death, and that's Jesus. That's a guy who is coming. That is God who is coming to be among us, right? It is also interesting, and this is one of those just extremely subtle little bullseyes, okay, that the Book of Mormon kind of effortlessly throws out again and again and again, that the Book of Mormon doesn't have the word Nehushtan in it. Just like John 3 doesn't have the word Nehushtan in it. And again, why does that make sense? Because Nehushtan is probably the name applied to the serpent by people who disparage it, right? It's a mocking nickname. So the Nephites, like the first Christians, seem to have valued this serpent, and so they talk about just the serpent who was raised up, the serpent on the pole, the serpent that Moses made, right? Yeah. So look, at a high level, and then I think Mike has this whole slide deck, and I love to go through the slide deck and then come back to Eden at the end, maybe. At a high level, I think it often is clarifying, or at least sort of interesting to step back and say, hey, what am I seeing at a high level in the Book of Mormon? What I'm seeing at a high level in the Book of Mormon is that the Book of Mormon is more obsessed with this image than the Bible. Like, pound for pound, has a lot more references. It has as many as the Old and New Testament put together.
Would now be a good time to share my 5th example?
Yes, let's hear your 5th. Where are we?
We're in Alma 37.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah. Which
so this is talking to his sons.
Yeah, this is interesting here. So I'm trying to figure out where I want to start, but we'll start in 43. And now, my sons, I would that ye should understand that these things are not without a shadow. For as our fathers were slothful to give heed to this compass, now these things were temporal, they did not prosper, even so it was with things which are spiritual. For behold, it is as easy to give heed to the word of Christ, which will point you to a straight course to eternal bliss, as it was for our fathers to give heed to this compass, which would point unto them a straight course to the promised land. And then it says, and now I say, is there not a type in this thing? For assuredly in this director did our fathers, by following this course to the promised land, shall the word of Christ, if we follow its course, carry us beyond this veil of sorrow into a far better land of promise. And this is where it gets a little more explicit into probably referencing the Nehushtan. O my son, do not let us be slothful because of the easiness of the way, for so it was with our fathers, for so it was prepared for them, that if they would look, they might live. Even so it was with us, the way is prepared, and if we look, if we will look, we may live forever.
Wow.
And now, my son,
right.
See that ye take care of these sacred things. Yea, see that ye look to God and live.
That's actually the most explicit, hardcore, like, this is good.
I think you're 100% correct. I think there are 5 references to the Nehushtan in the Book of Mormon.
Smarter than Dave.
No, that's like my third. That's like my third thing. If you look through the history of this channel, the third thing I've contributed.
No, many. Good eye. So here's the challenge, right? Because you can't just get in the book on the website and be like, search for Nehushtan.
Yeah.
Doesn't, right? It's more subtle.
You have to read the scriptures,
gotta read
guys.
them again and again. It also is why you can't do the thing where some people are like, oh, I read the Book of Mormon once, and then I spend the rest of my life sort of just reading topics. Like, you're going to miss stuff.
You got to actually read it.
You got to read it, and you got to do it again and again. Man, I think you are 100% correct. I think there are at least five, man, who knows what we're going to find, yet in the future. At least 5 clear references to the serpent on a staff in the Book of Mormon.
And this one is actually
Jackson,
probably
way to go, man.
This one is actually probably the most hardcore, like Jesus, this is the way. He is the one that will save you. He is the one that you look to and you'll live, right? Like,
well, it also gives us a nuance on the Liahona, right? Is that one of the ways that they're understanding
made out of brass.
That Alma's Liahona, understanding of the Liahona is influenced by. Sorry, my sentence has gotten all garbled. One of the ways by which Alma understands the Liahona is with reference to the Nehushtan, to that story.
Yeah, interesting.
So we're going in a straight course. We're going towards a far better land of promise, verse 45. We're looking and we're living. I think one of the things that we see in the temple, especially with President Nelson's administration, was making the temple more explicitly about Jesus. The changes that he put in were really trying to say, okay, are you guys listening? This is about the Savior. We're going to show you images of him. We're going to talk about him more explicitly. The serpent imagery in our time period in this 21st century, we're still standing on Protestant rubble. We're standing on these interpretations that are really bad of the serpent is horrible, serpent bad, Jesus good. And so you're not going to see that kind of stuff in our temples. Yeah. But you do see it in the symbols of the ancient world, which is really what Charlesworth gets into. As I was reading the book, a lot of times he'll say, oh, there's this really cool altar piece in such and such a place that has this, and there's this in this place. And I would spend some time looking it up, and then pretty soon I'm spending 30 minutes looking up stuff on the internet or going through my photos of places I've traveled to find what he's talking about. But he's just kind of referencing offhand. And so, your audience is going to need to, if they want to read the book, whatever, there's a lot more in there. There's oceans of stuff in the ancient world to show this idea that the serpent was a symbol of power, that the serpent was a symbol of healing or renewal or life, or a big one that we don't like to talk about, fertility. Like, that's a big deal in the ancient world. If your culture doesn't make a bunch of men that can fight, well, my culture will, and we will take you over, right? So you better be fertile, and you better especially have men that can fight. Men, you guys are expendable. The women make the babies. We're going to protect them, right? And so
I'm not a Roman guy, but I think this is how Rome won the Punic Wars. Is it just out-reproduced the Carthaginians?
You outbreed them, right? But that idea of the serpent as a symbol of fertility is such a big deal. Like, our culture is completely messed up right now. We live in this world where we celebrate, hey, I can make it so you don't have to have babies, and everybody cheers, and God in heaven is going facepalm, like, you guys don't get it, right? And so anyway, so that's what some of these slides are doing. Like, I put some of the stuff in here from his book and some other places where I've been to show this idea that the serpent was a symbol of power and protection.
Let's get into that.
Let's do that.
And creation, too.
Yes.
Just give me 10 seconds. What Mike, I think I'm just rephrasing Mike. This is not, right, this is a commentary on one verse, really. It's 400 pages plus like 300 pages of notes. How is it so big? Because it does what Mike is talking about. It goes through and says, look, what are all the relevant snakes in the archaeology? Blah. What are all the relevant snakes in Near Eastern mythology? He doesn't even get to the Americans or like that. It's really very Near East mostly, right? To give like a big global background to serpent imagery, which Mike's going to talk us through now, but is basically the background to us seeing that the Nephites and the first Christians apparently disagreeing with 2 Kings 18:4 knew a healing and sin-purifying serpent that came down from heaven.
One more interesting thing, before it starts talking about the Liahona and then gets into those last verses, it starts off by saying, he gives a bunch of advice to look to the Lord, and like in the morning, when thou layest down at night, lie down unto the Lord. And then it says, and if ye always do these things, ye shall be lifted up at the last day.
So that's another,
And so the other three references to the brass serpent all have that explicit mention that it was raised up or lifted up as well.
Super interesting. So to me, the giveaway in there, when I said, "Oh man, Jackson is right," is what it says. It's look and live, because that's not an obvious interpretation of the Liahona, because the Liahona is in Nephi's narrative is a compass. It shows you the way. It's not look and live. Look and live is the serpent.
For sure. Okay, now we're going to kick it over to Mike to hit us on this awesome PowerPoint they put together. I'm going to plug this thing as well for those who are interested. We'll share this PowerPoint you can look at. Also, I read this. This was given to me by a friend when we were in Okinawa, and it's a BYU Journal of Studies, a Book of Mormon Studies thing by Andrew C. Skinner, and it's Serpent Symbols and Salvation in the Ancient Near East and the Book of Mormon. And so it's a really good paper, talks about like Egyptian symbols of the serpent and what it means and all of that. So that is really cool when it comes to Ancient Near East. And now it looks like you're going to show some stuff about Greece and Greco-Roman symbols.
A lot of this is just coming from Charles Worth. So Dave told me, hey, we're going to talk about this, and he referenced this book. That was on Tuesday.
I warned him about the cover.
So on Tuesday, I get the book, and I'm like, well, I better read the book if I'm going to talk about, at least know what Dave's talking about. So as I was reading it, I'm like, oh, I've been there. I've been to that place, and I started putting some pictures in there. Before I even get into that, I'm sorry, I have to read this though. Helaman 8. So there's 4 Book of Mormon references to this. 5 with Jackson. He's correct. For, 1 Nephi 17:41, 2 Nephi 25:20, Alma 33:19 through 22, and Helaman 8. I want to go to Helaman 8, verse 14.
Okay. Let me click to it real quick.
Because
I've got it pulled up.
The Helaman 8 conversation is what needs to be read before we start talking about the serpent imagery all over the place.
Helaman 8 what?
Helaman 8. I'm going to start verse 13, actually. Verse 13. I changed my mind.
All right.
And the reason why I want to read this is because the Book of Mormon actually, it drops it as a side note. Like, oh, by the way, let me say this. And this little side note that we just kind of skip over, it's kind of a big deal. So verse 13 says, behold, ye not only deny my words. This is Nephi, son of Helaman, talking to the knuckleheads in his town. You also deny the words which have been spoken by our fathers, you knuckleheads. And that's my part I added. And also the words which were spoken by this man Moses, who had such great power given to him. Yea, the words which he has spoken concerning the coming of the Messiah. Okay, so to the Book of Mormon, the Messiah is going to be Jesus. Yea, did he not bear record that the Son of God should come? And as he lifted up the brazen serpent in the wilderness, even so shall he be lifted up who should come. And as many as should look upon the serpent should live. There's that look and live that we've talked about. And as many as should look upon the Son of God with faith, having a contrite spirit, might live, even unto that life which is eternal. So there's the reciprocal nature of pistis, or faith. This idea that faith is relational. I've got to have a contrite spirit, meaning I've got to be teachable. So I'm going in the way. Alma 37. I'm going on direct yashar, the straight course. So then we get to verse 16. Behold, Moses did not only testify of these things, but also all the holy prophets, from his days even to the days of Abraham.
Where does that say that in the Old Testament?
It doesn't.
Yeah, exactly.
Now,
That's the dude.
right. So we have Moses, but then remember, Abraham's like way before Moses. So all the holy prophets, testify these things, but also all the holy prophets from his days, even to the days of Abraham. Abraham saw of his coming and was filled with gladness and did rejoice. Okay, so here's the idea I want to just emphasize. If Abraham's doing this, if Moses is doing this, then this symbol is just bleeding into everything else. Now, I'm going to just make a shout out to this, a couple different podcasts. One of them is one I do called Talking Scripture. In Talking Scripture, I talk about some of this imagery. It's actually in the Doctrine and Covenants. That's a whole other conversation. Go listen to that. Another podcast I want to
send the link to that to Brandon.
Yeah,
I'll put it
yeah.
in the description.
Another reference I want to shout out to is, and we don't know who this individual is. You guys have begged her to come out and come to your show. We could even do like a voice thing where, hello, it's so good to be on your show, and it's all digitized, right? Welcome to the show, Jack, and it's just like a black screen. I'm so glad to be here. But
You're
Jack,
very welcome, Jack. Anytime.
Jack Logan has talked so much about this idea that there was an overarching ancient tradition that existed, and she doesn't say this, but I'm going to say it. It's the temple, and it's everywhere. Now she goes crazy. She takes Charlesworth and says, "Oh, please, you're going to talk about Near East? Hold my Diet Coke."
Yeah.
She goes to
It
India.
might be beer. We don't know that she's LDS.
She goes to China. She goes to the Americas. She goes everywhere, and she's like, "Listen, this stuff's everywhere." I tried to find like a specific episode on this, but I couldn't. I've listened to her stuff, but she just kind of sprinkles it everywhere.
Yeah, and to go along with this, verse 18, and yea, behold, I say unto you that Abraham not only knew these things, but there were many before the days of Abraham who were called by the order of the Son of God.
I want you to roll back to verse 16.
There it is.
I want to show you something what verse 16 says.
Thank you for calling that out.
Okay. Moses did not only testify of these things, but also all the holy prophets from his days, even to the days of Abraham. Okay, I'm just noticing this for the first time.
Me too. I was like, wait.
From the days of Moses to the days of Abraham
Wait, where are those prophets?
is back.
It is back.
Yeah.
It's backwards.
It's during the sojourn in Egypt. Right? So if we take this seriously at face value, he's referring to a line of prophets in Egypt, of which we know zero.
That's really
So
good.
we know some. We know of, because Joseph was after Abraham.
Right. So we know Joseph.
Yeah, so like but there is, those aren't really considered like, talk to most Jewish people. The prophets, there's Abraham and then there's Moses.
Right.
In between, they're not talking about holy prophets, right?
The Exodus just sort of skips over that, right? Genesis ends, and then then a bunch of time passes. So this is anyway. I've never
think
noticed
about the brass.
this.
Well, no, think about what the brass plates are and what a lot of people surmise the brass plates
And the
are. It's a
fact that-
record of Joseph,
Right.
Joseph.
The fact that we get Joseph in 2 Nephi 3.
and that's crazy. Actually.
Here's and not to
So
go
these are Egyptian prophets.
not to go too crazy on you, but there's this whole bit of literature on Joseph's wife, and she has visionary experiences.
Asenath.
And so, Asenath, she is literally a priestess. So she's having stuff. This is like, now I'm way outside the canon, but I think one of the reasons why this is important is because the Book of Mormon's calling this out. There's no way a 23-year-old in upstate New York is going to say, listen, there was this ancient tradition. All the prophets going back saw this imagery of a snake. They saw it, and it's everywhere. And it's part of these people that were called by the holy order of God. It's just like drop there, and then we just move on. But what it's doing is it's inviting nerds like Dave to go, okay, hold up, what does that mean, right?
Well, and I think the reading is confirmed by verse 18, because 16 says, from Moses to Abraham. 18 says, and even some before Abraham.
Yeah.
Right?
Holy cow.
So that is the direction we're talking about, which I have I'm 53. Am I 53? I'm 52.
Right,
I'm noticing this for the first time.
Yeah. I was just noticing it when I was like, wait, Abraham was before Moses, and then I paused. I'm like, I'm just going to skip over that. And then you guys are like, no, let's talk about this. So we're going back to Egypt here.
Yeah. And there's even some verses in the New Testament that basically display the same idea. And it's in Acts 3, verse 15. It says, this is Peter preaching to the people right after Jesus ascended. It said, but ye denied the Holy One and the just, and desired a murderer to be granted unto you, and killed the Prince of Life, whom God hath raised from the dead. And then he says in verse 18, but those things which God before had shewed by the mouth of all his prophets that Christ should suffer, he hath so fulfilled.
So it's just like, once again, it's like all of the prophets are testifying of this Christ, but then you read the Old Testament and you're like, I mean, we're really having to look like this at Isaiah, and we get it, right?
Isaiah 53 and stuff like that.
They talk as if it's this plain reading of Christ. And I just got to say, boys, we're back. This is so much better than shooting guns and blowing stuff up, which is really fun.
We can do both.
We should do both sometime.
We should do both. But I'm telling you guys,
Stick a Joseph
talking about
Range
this
Day.
stuff, feeling this fire inside of me as we...
Having Dave give me nucks because I did one thing
But
right.
like, we're learning things together, and like, this is why I love this channel. I think this is probably why a lot of you love this channel, is because we're just sitting here studying the scriptures together, and we're learning things as we have these conversations. And this is why you need to find nerdy good friends that you can have conversations about the scriptures with, because you learn so much. All right, now your PowerPoint is now shown up on this
I'm going to
screen.
shut up, Mike.
Let's
you
get
wanna,
into it. Hit it.
We're like an hour in, so maybe...
No, I think we've covered a ton of it.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, but
obviously, you want to. I would say to this,
So
like,
I got it pulled up here, Mike. You can look at it. So
the book's worth a read.
explain to us.
Okay, yeah, the book's worth a read, but basically in the book, he just drops this line on page 236. He talks about this monument, and he says, listen, you don't need to know that much about the monument, but if you zoom in, you have this fellow holding, he's got the fig leaf over his privates there, which we want to protect. But in his hand, he's
Small
holding
fig
a
leaf.
globe with a serpent around it.
Oh,
and the
really?
idea that he says is, listen, this is a symbol of power, but it's also a symbol of strength and dominion and might. And this might be a topic for another podcast that we do with you guys, or a video, whatever. But so many monarchs are holding like a staff in one hand and then a globe in the other. It's this idea of that they are sovereign over the world.
Yeah.
Okay. But the snake imagery is tied also to the earth in the conception of finding the sacred center. Now, I think in one of our videos that we did with you guys, Dave and I talked about, how do I say his name? Is it Mircea?
Here's a closer,
Mircea
here's a
Eliade.
closer
Mircea
picture
Eliade.
if you want to pop it up.
Yeah,
with
that's really good. Zoom in on that. Mircea Eliade is going to talk about this in the sacred and the profane. I think we talked about it in one of our videos one time. Anyway, the snake is tied to creation. So there's a whole bunch of stuff in here, and I'm just using big picture. But that imagery of the globe and the snake is so tied to what Jack Logan would call as the ancient tradition, because, for example, in the ancient Near Eastern stories, God defeats some kind of a serpent, and then he skins it, and the skin of the serpent is either going to make the earth or make the rakia, the dome over the earth, to hold back the cosmic waters. And once we hold back the cosmic
Shout
waters,
out Flat Earth.
we exactly yeah. Once we hold back the cosmic waters, now we can have a place where we can live. And so, in other words, the defeat of the snake brings order. Sometimes the god would actually wear the snake as part of their robe, right? And I think he talks about that in here.
And this is a creation story that does seem to be, the Old Testament seems to contain two creation stories, and this is one of them, the creation story by which God defeats the cosmic enemies and basically builds the cosmos out of their bodies.
And this is everywhere
Rahab
in the
the
Psalms.
dragon
Yeah, this is
and
Rahab.
Leviathan. That's what that's all about.
All of it. And a lot of this stuff is the nerdy stuff that I did with my dissertation work, where I spent years like analyzing the Psalms and going into this. But John Day wrote a book about it. I'm trying to remember the name, but he talks about this idea of the serpent and the dragon. Bernard Bato wrote another book on this. I've read a bunch of books on this. It's all jumbled together. But
John and Adela Collins have a book. It's called Chaos Conf. Man, I think maybe it's just by her. Maybe it's Adela Yarbrough Collins.
Yes.
I think the title's like Chaos Conf or Creation by War or Creation by Combat, maybe.
Yes. The big picture is that order comes out of this combat where the serpent is destroyed. So, for example, at Delphi, Apollo kills Python, which is what we think it is, a python, right? A snake. He kills it, and then that's going to be the sacred center. And so from this...
And you don't have to think, by the way, is Mike saying that's how the world was created? You can say, look, in ancient Israel, there were multiple stories told about how the world was created. John Walton says that the story in Genesis 1 was told inside the temple and is setting up the order of creation inside the temple.
Every year.
The story of Yahweh defeating the cosmic enemies seems to be the story that was told outside the temple at the annual festival, right? Israel could have 2 or 10 if it wanted, right? Could have multiple creation stories for different contexts, and that seems to be the case. There are at least these two, like an esoteric and an exoteric, a private and a public story, both of which, well, the one that made it into our Bible in most detail seems to have been the private one, and we have a lot of hints at the public one.
Say again, Dave, what you would say would be the private story.
Genesis 1. In fact, I think it's Genesis 1 to 3. I actually think that although they may have had different textual histories, come from different places before they were put together, maybe that's true, but I think they do belong together. Okay. Genesis 1 to 3, and I think that is the
private story,
the inside the temple story of the creation.
Okay.
And the outside the temple story, whenever you hear about defeating Leviathan or slaying death or defeating Rahab the dragon, you're seeing a reference to the public story that was acted out as a drama. I think there's reasonably good evidence for it at a big fall festival over the course of a number of days.
Yeah. And for those of you that are like Mike and Dave are crazy, Marvel, is it Marvel that did the whole thing with Thanos? Am I doing this right? Are they the ones that did it?
Yes.
I'm trying to remember. Okay, so
I know where you're going, but I'm with you.
What's
The
that
Avengers?
universe called?
Avengers.
The Avengers. Yeah, but it has a name for
Marvel. Marvel.
the whole universe. That whole story of that whole universe is this story. So what's his bucket? Iron Man, the fancy guy that took drugs and came back.
Robert Downey Jr.
Okay, Robert Downey Jr. I love Robert Downey Jr.
guy that took drugs.
He took drugs.
He's really handsome.
He's the good Charlie Sheen.
Which one?
Charlie Sheen. So Robert Downey Jr. dies so everybody might live. And at the very end of Avengers, they're basically commemorating his death, that we beat Thanos. Well, what is Thanos? Well, the Greek word thanatos is death. The Iron Man defeated death so we could be with our families again. And it's this idea of like, how are we going to remember him? Like that bit at the very end is this story. So the cosmic story of defeating death, and somebody has to die to do this, and chaos has to go down, is told in our movies. We're just doing it differently.
It is the story.
It's the same story.
It is the story.
I think religion's so stupid. I'm too smart for religion. Let's go watch Avengers Endgame.
And we'll dress up.
And we'll wear our sacred clothing. And we'll
dress to look like the gods and enact their myths.
Yes.
100% Comic-Con is people, it's fulfilling the pilgrimage instinct.
Yes, we're all
people
doing it.
in their secular lives no longer
By the way,
fulfill.
if you're
100%.
a huge fan, you went to the movie, but what do you also do? You buy it or you stream it and you watch it with your friends and you come over.
Yeah.
And then what do you do after? You talk about it. I like that part. I like that. Well, that's what these guys did. They just didn't have Netflix or whatever.
Yeah, they had Jesus.
So yeah, go to the next slide. So if you go to Ephesus, this is Hadrian's temple.
Yeah.
And if you zoom in right there, and it's kind of hard to see. Did I give you a more zoomed in one? Yeah, go to the left.
Oh,
yeah,
the next one.
Go to the next one. So if you go to the next one, that's Medusa. And it's the idea of her serpents, the serpents of her head or her presence is this terrifying presence, and we're scaring away the bad. We're scaring away the evil eye.
So Medusa wasn't bad? She was good?
She's a complicated character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Misunderstood.
Yeah, sometimes she's good, sometimes she's generally bad, but she serves a purpose. She's this and not just Medusa, but the serpent is this symbol for power and also warding off the enemies of truth.
And that's one of the interesting things. A lot of this book is sort of about, hey, look, the serpent can symbolize many different things.
Yes.
And he has a list of like 25 or 30 things.
I handpicked a few because I was like, because Dave's like, read the book, and I'm like, it's Tuesday, so I was like, I was skimming through it and going through it. But I have a list of some of these. Like he says, it's duality, good and evil. Humanity's struggle with life and death, wisdom and sin. This is what he says. He says, the serpent may symbolize opposites, and he uses this phrase a lot, a double entendre. The bearer of evil is neutralized and superseded by the bearer of the good. Each is symbolized by a serpent. That's a heavy statement.
Yeah.
Both.
And we'll come back to the so that is what we've seen. That's the whole point of John 3:14.
Yes.
Right?
But I think that's the truth, though, too, is like it's the counterfeits. That's what makes the mortality so difficult, is the bad can oftentimes look like the good. And Jesus warns against this, right? Woe unto those who call evil good and good evil, right? And the reason they're able to call evil good and good evil, and people listen to it, is because they look a lot the same, right? And so for example, one thing I see online a lot, people talk about the evils of Freemasonry and secret societies and all of these sort of things, and look at evil. Therefore, look at the Mormons; they're doing similar things.
They're so bad.
Evil.
Yeah.
And I'm like, or maybe it's because there are counterfeits. Are there secret societies that use certain oaths and rituals and even some of the same liturgical actions that we do in order to enact evil? That is a possibility. But I would expect that. If there is something good, I would expect the counterfeit to look almost exactly, almost indiscernibly the same as the evil counterfeit.
Well, I think we're going to get to Genesis. I think, although this is going to be a long episode, it turns out. I think we'll get back to Genesis, but
it's a big book.
There is a very common mythological motif, right, is sometimes called the Thunder Twins, but the idea that that the gods or the great tree has twin sons, and it's the battle between the twin sons that drive the action, and the twin sons are very similar. Right? Even though they're also opposites. And I think actually, literally, when we say there are two Nehushtanim, two fiery serpents on poles in the temple, I think we're catching a glimpse that there is a Thunder Twin story here. And we see a hint of it in Genesis.
Yeah, and it's kind of goofy to me, too, because that's a huge hang-up of, like, evangelicals. They're like, the Mormons believe that Jesus and Satan are brothers and stuff. And
it's worse.
We learn in the Bible that
you are their brother.
Satan is a fallen angel, okay? So what do we learn from that? Okay, in one moment, he was in good standing. He was an angel in good standing.
Divine.
Right.
He was divine.
Yeah. When? Oh, in a premortal life? Do evangelicals believe in a premortal life? Do you? I don't think so. From what I've heard. So, in what instance would he be a fallen angel, likely in good standing with Elohim and
So I think
Jesus?
I struggle with the whole Jesus and Satan are brothers, but I also struggle with, online discourse is crazy. So. Since Charlie Kirk passed away, right? Since he was killed violently in Utah, there's been a lot of discussion on both sides about, well, are Mormons Christians, and are we even Mormon? What does it mean, as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? And that's been one of the big things that's been stated is they believe Jesus and Satan are brothers. And I just think, okay, we need to pause and we need to listen to each other because they have a point. If I'm an evangelical, Yahweh doesn't have a brother. So I can see their point, but then they need to listen to us and say, okay, help us to relate to you that Jesus is a son of God. Like the scriptures say, that's how we read it.
Yeah.
And so by our misreading or not listening to each other and reading text different, because I'm going to say they're misreading it. They're misreading the text. What are they going to say about us?
You're
misreading it. Okay, so we're both accusing each other of the same crime. Let's at least listen to each other and understand one another.
For sure. So I'm interested. This next slide right here. Yeah. Who's
Asclepius.
Asclepius.
That's the first name of my
So if you
first
go,
song.
there's a couple islands. One of them is called Kos. It's in the Greek islands. There's what's called an Asclepion. That's where at Kos, I believe, is where this guy named Hippocrates was this healer, and people would go there. And the idea was you would go to the Asclepion and you would have a dream, and in your dream you would commune with the god. And you would get revelation. There was this big idea that dreams were how we access the divine.
It's an old technique called incubation, which is sleeping in a sacred place in order to provoke a vision. Solomon does it in the Book of Kings.
Sounds awesome.
Actually,
I want to do it. We should do it. Okay, so
Let's break into the temple, have a sleepover.
over the fence.
So have you guys heard of the Hippocratic Oath?
Yes.
Which is like do no harm. Well, it comes from this guy,
Hippocrates,
that was at the Asclepion, and Asclepius is this god of healing. You'll notice in his right hand a staff with a serpent around it, and it's a symbol for healing. Now, I don't know if Charlesworth gets into. Excuse me. I don't know if he gets into where that comes, because I'm always like, okay, where does that come from? Where do I trace the origin of this, right? But I'm going to contend that Helaman 8 is where I'm going to say. I'm going to say everybody's doing this. This happens to be a place where it survived, where we have this image of being healed. There's somebody holding a staff. It's got a serpent on it. And then he does talk about it in his book. He even gives pictures, but I don't need to put them in the slide deck because everybody's seen it. You can be in another country and not be able to read the language, but you know where the pharmacy is. You know where the hospital is. Why?
Yeah.
You see a caduceus.
That symbol.
The thing that's interesting as well is like, what does this symbol? Because I don't think what we're saying is that the Greeks get this symbol of the serpent around a staff from the Jews or from the Israelites.
No, I think we're saying that they get it from there's a common patrimony.
There's
a common inheritance
ancient
of the
tradition
ancient
where
world.
both of these come from.
Yes.
And this is just so interesting because normally some people would look past this completely because the normal depictions of the brazen serpent, because of our connection to Jesus, a lot of times they have him on a cross, like the serpent on a cross, right? This, the way it describes in Numbers and everywhere else, is just a serpent on a pole. And so this is a serpent on a pole.
I want to read this
really
bit because I think this is
let's
really
read
cool.
it.
So it's, that's
one?
this one right here. We must ask. Go back.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay, I love this because anyway, it's so good. And the whole time I was reading this, I'm like, I want to put this whole page in a slide deck. And I'm like, no, Mike, too much salt.
Yeah.
So this is the gist. We must ask how and why the devotees of Asclepius chose this symbol. It is the depiction of the serpent curled around his staff. And then Charlesworth, he invites us to engage in what he calls the handmade midrash, or the visual theology to understand how the ancients viewed things. That's his invitation. He's begging us, instead of just standing and saying, well, I know everything because I saw a 5-minute YouTube video, or I saw an hour thing by the Paul brothers, he says, you know what, go and spend some time and read and learn. And I would invite you to travel. There's something about travel and hearing the stories of the ancients, picking up a book on the flight and reading, okay, what did they believe? And just kind of getting out of our seat of I know everything and just go, well, maybe there's something I can learn. And that's back to that bit. And I don't remember the verse, but we read it in here where the Lord says, if you have faith and you look at me and you have a contrite spirit, in other words, you admit you don't know everything and go, man, teach me. And if you do that, we'll see with new eyes. And that's one of the reasons why I love reading so much, because I'm like, I'm such an idiot and I read something new and I'm like, I never saw that before. Or I sit with friends and I read a text that I've read 100 times and I go, I've never even seen that.
For sure.
And it's so cool.
It is.
And handmade midrash, right? So midrash is interpretation, right? Darash is to investigate. Midrash, he's saying, hey, look at all these imagery, all this art, read these stories and engage proactively with it. Make your own interpretation. Make an understanding, right? And this is I think some of why he keeps saying, here are 15, here are 20 noteworthy things about the serpent in this context, right? And I mean, so the two that always kind of seem obvious to me when you're thinking about how can Jesus possibly be a serpent, are one, the serpent sheds its skin. It seems to die and still live. It leaves behind a body, yet it lives. But also,
That's good. No, say that one more time. That's deep.
So it sheds its skin and it seems to leave behind a body but still live. Right?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But also, the serpent is a creature that crosses worlds. It goes down underground, disappears, seems to go into the underworld. But also, it goes up on trees.
That's Hermes.
And also, it crosses waters. Right? It seems to be a creature that can live in any world. And so
time out. Page 30 of his book. Hermes is doing this. He's going up and down. Page 30 of his book. Hermes I don't have it in the slide deck. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Hermes in his hand is holding a staff with a serpent tied around. This is page 30 of his book. So the point is, Hermes is a big deal in Greek mythology because he's one of these guys that can cross boundaries.
Yeah.
And at least in this image, he's got a serpent
with him.
And I'm going to keep it G-rated for your audience, but a herm was a directional pointer, which is tied to this idea of fertility in the snake.
it's like a mile marker along the side of roads.
And so, but it's the idea of we're crossing boundaries.
It was fertility marker.
We're able to get out of this space, this profane space, and
Into the
enter
holy.
into the sacred.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I sorry.
No, that's great. So I like Charles Worth saying, I like his invitation to engage in personal midrash. Because on the one hand, it's sort of inevitable. It's what we do as humans, right? I mean, we're sitting here talking about Comic-Con and Thanos and the Marvel universe, right? We can't help but engage in our interpretation. On the other hand, that's not usually the invitation from the pulpit. Usually the pulpit says, I want to give you the interpretation, right?
Yeah.
So I love what Charles, I love him for saying that.
Yeah.
Even though he made it hard for me to show his book by picking a naughty cover.
But I think that's think about this. That's what this does. The YouTube audience, or whatever you want to call it, the LDS podcasting world, is inviting us of other ways to interpret or think. And they're not bad. We're just opening up our mind. Because in Sunday at church, we have business, we have a song and a prayer, and we have this much time. And some people, this is all the religion they're going to get. So we're going to give them to them the basic stuff.
For sure.
But you read the Book of Mormon, and yes, it's all about Jesus, but the authors are constantly dropping breadcrumbs everywhere. And once again, there's no way 23-year-old Joseph Smith knows even that the breadcrumbs exist.
Yeah.
Let alone what they mean.
For sure. One of the breadcrumbs that I want to point out, it's a slide right here, you can pop it up, Brandon, is, so we're going to talk about gematria. So gematria is essentially that...
I couldn't help myself.
So in Hebrew, they don't have numbers. They just assign a number
use the
to
letters.
each of the letters, right? And when you look at the word for serpent in Hebrew, which we've talked about, which is Nahash, which is, it takes the three letters that make it up are 50, 8, and 300, right? Which add up to 358. You do the same thing with the Hebrew word Meshiach, which is made up of 4 Hebrew letters, and it adds up to 358 as well. And so gematria, although it's kind of like a messy, loose,
It is messy, yeah.
loose thing, right? You can't always... not everything can be in purpose when you're writing with a language, you know.
But it makes you go like this.
But it makes you go, wait a second. And the fact that Serpent and Meshiach, or Messiah, all they align in the same number, you know, like that is something to pay attention to.
I love what Weinreb said. Weinreb says this: so the serpent and Messiah have the same sum total of components. They have, in a sense, the same value and essence. The serpent is the Redeemer on the opposite side. So he and by the way, he writes in language that isn't easy for your average reader to read. Sometimes you have to read it and go, okay, what is he saying? But in Roots of the Bible, essentially what he's saying is one aspect of the serpent is it's a redeeming figure that can bring us out of profane space into sacred space. The other symbol is it clearly represents a destructive force. Well, it's everything Isaiah says it's saying. It's actually, this story is actually in ether.
Yeah.
They lose their way. They put the prophets in pits, and serpents hedge up the way, so they have to repent and look unto Christ and live. This is in ether. So it's not just in Numbers 21. This is a story that is told, right?
Can I point something out that is just popping in my head right now? Can we talk about dragons? Like, okay, what is a dragon? It's a serpent with wings, and what comes out of its mouth? Fire.
Fire.
It's a fiery serpent. And so, like, you have just this idea of the seraph, the Messiah, all things testify of Christ. Dragons throughout all of ancient civilizations have dragons, especially when you go to the Eastern, in China, things like that, where they look to the dragon as a sacred, like a redeeming, protecting, mythological creature.
Lucky.
Right?
Yeah.
It's lucky. And
it's also creation. I almost put it in here, that article, Sacred Vestments. Remember the thing from China where they have the square?
The square and the compass.
And then the male, female figure. And then what are they
2
in?
torsos and they're
torsos of a
twining
dragon.
lower halves of snakes.
Yeah. So interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry, I put it in there because, like, where do
So
you
it's just
stop?
crazy.
I mean, I wonder if this is the point where we ought to
Let's go to Garden of Eden.
talk Eden and then kind of wind it up, because I just don't know how we're doing on time. We've been going for a while.
Okay,
here.
let's just look at this. I just want to read this little list that is right here
This
on
is
why
right out of his
snakes
book,
are cool.
And he didn't write why snakes are cool. That's my interpretation,
That's your
of what he's saying.
interpretation.
Yeah.
So these are all the cool things about snakes. Snakes can rejuvenate themselves, appearing with new skin at least once a year. So right there, the death, leaving behind a body, rebirth. They never get tired, sick, or old. They are astonishingly beautiful. Their bodies are smooth and glistening. They never give off a smell. They don't need washing or cleansing. They seldom defecate. They are not bearers of pestilence. They can protect us from rats and other pests. They can go deep into the earth or the sea, but we cannot follow. They aerate and enrich our gardens. They provide venom for healing, but that venom also can destroy us. Yeah. They are admirably independent of us. They taste good. They provide attractive skins for accessories and shoes. There we go.
I wondered about taste good because I've only eaten an eel and it was really greasy. So I would love to hear from your audience.
That's not a snake, though. I've eaten rattlesnake nuggets. They were actually pretty good.
I've
in
had
Arizona.
rattlesnake nuggets too.
It tastes good?
Yeah.
Is there
I mean, it's like chicken.
I've had
is there a
alligator
certain time
nuggets
of
too.
year that snakes shed their skin? Do we know? What if it was like right on like Yom Kippur or something?
Depend on the species.
Yeah,
I actually the fertility connection is super interesting, right? So having snakes around your house and garden, right? The snake not only will eat mice
that will
and
destroy
other
your garden.
pests.
Yeah.
The snake, the burrowing activity of the snake aerates the garden and increases the fertility. So the presence of snakes won't harm your crop, but they keep away pests and also improve the soil quality.
Yeah.
And so yeah. So yeah.
And he doesn't say it in the list here. I pulled it out here, but he does talk about it throughout his book where he says they're not offensive creatures. They're defensive. They will strike, but they're defensive. And when I read that, I just thought, okay, isn't that interesting? Because in the Book of Mormon, I'm back to the Book of Mormon.
Yeah.
Every time they go on an offensive war, Mormon's like, I'm not going to fight with you guys.
Yeah.
But war is okay for defense, never for attack, to quote the Book of Mormon and Yoda. And then the other thought, and this is
which are the two main sources of good information.
Yeah. And this is another bit. And he mentions going to, and I tried to find the picture, and I apologize to your audience because I've been there. I just don't remember it. If you go to Capernaum, there are these old places where maybe even like a synagogue, remnants that maybe even Jesus walked, right? At Capernaum, the mother-in-law of Peter, like the old foundation stone, he mentions going there, and he says he found this church. And when he found it, he said, what is this that I see? This is what he writes. He writes this in his book on page 226. I'm just going to read this short bit.
Yeah.
He says, I walked into this church, and I saw on the western wall, a Greek Orthodox church in Capernaum, one may see this attractive mural. Christ sits enthroned in judgment. On his left and below him are two large figures. One is the earth. How is Christ depicted? He sits on two lions, and in his hand he holds a serpent. I tried to find this picture. I'm going to go, and we're going to find it.
We'll go.
The other being judged is the sea, Thalassa. How is she portrayed? She is also with the serpent. What do these things mean? I directed this question to a young monk in the Greek Orthodox Church, and I asked him. Pondering the tradition, he instantly answered my question. They mean power. Now, here's why I think this is important. And maybe I'm way off the reservation here, but just bear with me. Do you remember that verse? And I think it's in Mark, and I'm sure you guys know it. I don't know where it is because I didn't look it up. But where Jesus says, you will have the ability to pick up snakes and not be harmed.
It's in the.
I know it's in Mark.
It's in
And
the
that's where you
late
get, like,
ending
those
of Mark. So it's
Baptist-
Mark 16. It's,
Okay.
it's the second half of the last chapter.
okay, so this is where I'm going with this.
And that's where you get like the Southern Baptist. I
Yes,
don't know.
that's
Like,
where- that's
where
first
they're
where I
snake
went.
Handling
snakes
man.
and
snake
stuff.
snake
Yeah.
handlers, right? And I don't think that's what he means.
Yeah.
But what if, I'm just throwing this out there, because as soon as I read that quote, and I'd never considered this before.
Yeah.
But you know that bit in section 121? Joseph is in prison. He's been in prison for months because we did it wrong in Missouri.
Yeah.
And God says, let me teach you about power. Do you want to hold power? You have to be this kind of person. And then he gives a list. It's by persuasion and long suffering and gentleness and love unfeigned. And if you do this, and then he says, you will have a scepter in your hand, and your kingdom or your seed will return to you unprovoked. It's in the end of section 121. I'm not going to read it.
The best
but
section of the Doctrine
it's
and Covenants.
such a good section. But maybe I should read it. I don't know. I guess we're not in a
We
time
should
crunch.
all get it tattooed onto us.
I'm going to read it because I think this is so
As
important.
deacons.
And I know that you might be wondering, what does this have to do with snakes? Just bear with me.
Yeah.
This is worth 2 seconds to read. I think this is
Without
so good.
compulsory means.
So good, man. Okay, here it
It's
is.
the end of section 121.
So good.
Starting like verse 38.
How do I handle power? Verse 43. Verse 42,
Yep.
with kindness and pure knowledge, without hypocrisy. Verse 43, reproving betimes with sharpness. I'm correcting immediately with focus is what that means. And then I show an increase of love. And then he says this, verse 45, that your bowels be full of charity towards all men, and to the household of faith, let virtue or power, dunamis, garnish thy thoughts unceasingly. Then shall thy confidence wax strong in the presence of God, and the doctrine of the priesthood shall distill upon thy soul as the dews from heaven. The Holy Ghost shall be thy constant companion, thy scepter an unchanging scepter of righteousness, and thy dominion, my children, shall be an everlasting dominion, and without compulsory means. It, my kingdom, my dominion, will flow to me forever and ever. God knows how to handle power. And so if there is this image, like I said, maybe I'm way off the reservation here, but if there is these images of these gods, and in this Greek Orthodox Church, there's an image of the Savior holding a staff, which is a serpent, and it represents power. What if this idea of handling serpents in Mark, that ending, is code speech for God saying, if you follow Christ, I'm going to teach you how to handle power, how to be a man of truth.
Yeah.
Dude, there's actually an epic story that literally depicts kind of what you're saying. I don't know, maybe this is off the reservation, but in Acts 28, it says, and when Paul had gathered a bundle of sticks and laid them on the fire, there came a viper out of the heat and fastened on his hand. And when the barbarians saw the venomous beast hang on his hand, they said among themselves, no doubt this man is a murderer, whom though he hath escaped the sea, yet vengeance suffereth not to live. And he shook off the beast into the fire and felt no harm. Howbeit they looked when he should have swollen or fallen down dead suddenly. But after they had looked a great while and saw no harm come to him, they changed their minds and said that he was a god.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like the serpent, like with they went from he is evil, bad, whatever, to he's a
divine.
God. He's divine
Yeah.
because he was able to handle that serpent did.
And I don't know, maybe I'm crazy,
Yeah.
but it's weird when I read a book and I read a line like that, it makes me think of other texts that I've read that I've considered, because I don't think the ending of Mark is Jesus inviting us to go to the pet store and buy a bunch of snakes and go to church. I just don't. That's not my interpretation. But I've often wondered, okay, but what is it saying, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, just a thought.
No, that's awesome. Let's go to the beginning.
Okay.
The Garden of Eden.
Let's wind up on Genesis. So let's just remember kind of where we were 45 minutes ago. There seemed to be in the Holy of Holies 2 6-winged serpents, because they're the seraphim that come down in Isaiah 6, right? The Holy of Holies is the Garden of Eden. It's God's garden. It's the place where His throne is.
At least pre-Hezekiah.
That's a whole other conversation. Already, somebody in the comments is like, no, blah, but yes. Now let me read one verse in 2 Nephi 9, which last year I read it and it really provoked me, and then I want to look at Genesis a little bit. Okay.
Okay.
So this is Jacob, and this is a temple discourse that has a whole bunch of points of contact with the Sermon on the Mount.
2 Nephi 9,
verse 9 is referring to Satan. He says, our spirits must become like unto him, and we become devils, angel to a devil, etc., etc. And then halfway through the verse, to that being who beguiled our first parents, who transformeth himself nigh unto an angel of light. And I read this, and I thought, who beguiled our first parents, who transformeth himself nigh unto an angel of light. Jacob is saying these things back to back. What if they're the same thing? What if the beguilement is the transformation?
That's good.
In other words, when he transformeth himself nigh unto an angel of light is the moment when he beguiled Eve. What does he look like in Genesis in the moment when he beguiles Eve? He looks like a snake. So the snake, is it possible that the snake in Genesis 3 should be understood as, like in Isaiah 6, we saw that physical things are imagined as sort of visionary things, right? The Nehushtan are the seraphim coming down. The incense smoke are the clouds. The Ark of the Covenant is the throne and God sitting on it, right? Should we understand something similar about Genesis 3, where the snake that is beguiling, the serpent's beguiling Eve, is one of these Nehushtans, and it is understood to be Satan who has transformed himself into a serpent to beguile her. And I think there's some pretty good evidence to think that's exactly what is intended in Genesis 3. So let's take a look.
Let's do it.
Okay. First of all, and I'm gonna summarize this. You can go check me. But if you look at Genesis 1 through 4, and you follow it through and you go, what name is used for God? Okay. In Genesis 1 through Genesis 2, verse 3, I think, it's Elohim. In the beginning, Elohim did this. Elohim said, let's make man in our image. Elohim did the other thing, 7 days of creation. That's all Elohim, 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 Elohim. Genesis 2, I want to say about verse 4, it suddenly changes. And so the sort of conventional wisdom sort of says, well, we think that Genesis 1 came from one place and Genesis 2 and 3 came from somewhere else. And I don't mind any of that, but I think there's something else we can learn here.
P&J.
The name of God changes. It's no longer Elohim. It's Yahweh Elohim.
The Lord God.
The Lord God. Which could be Yahweh of the Elohim, right? Yahweh of the gods, right? Or, the one who is one of the Elohim, Yahweh, who is an Elohim, right? And he is the one who then plants the garden. He forms man out of the clods of the earth. I think afar is not really dust; it's a clod. Fine, right? He, has Adam name all the animals. Everything in Genesis 2 is Yahweh Elohim.
I like dust, but go on.
Okay. I don't mind it, but you see in a lot of contemporary translations something like clod.
I know, but I'm a clod.
It's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
sorry.
Then Genesis 3 starts out, and said the serpent shows up. And the serpent, when he starts talking, does not talk about Yahweh Elohim. He says, hey, didn't Elohim say, don't eat of the tree?
So where
I'm in Genesis 3, verse 1. There's an initial reference to Yahweh Elohim. But look in the second half of the verse. When the serpent starts talking, the serpent says, hey, did Elohim say, don't eat these things? The woman says, yeah, we can eat the fruit of the trees, but Elohim said, don't eat this one tree. The serpent, verse 5, well, Elohim knows, right? And then, so we get the eating. So it's in the dialogue between the serpent and the woman. They're not talking about Yahweh Elohim anymore. They're talking about Elohim. Then we move back in verse 8, and it's Yahweh Elohim again. Who was walking in the garden? Yahweh's walking in the garden. Yahweh says, Adam, where are you guys? Etc.
He's like, wait, I thought I was talking to you.
Oh, here we go.
Interesting.
Why on earth does it suddenly switch the names of God? Here's what I think. And I think it's the Book of Mormon that gives us a little clue. Okay? The beguilement, it's the thunder twins. It's the sons of thunder, okay? Who are two serpents in this story.
Okay, I'm hearing this for the first time. You and I have never talked about this. And for our audience, because I got distracted for 2 seconds.
Make sure you're talking to your mic, Mike.
I got distracted for 2 seconds. Dave, I've known you a long time. We have never talked about this. So will you do me a favor and just back it up 30 seconds and show me again where the verse is, what you just said about the Thunder Twins? Because
So look right
I
here.
was pulling up my Hebrew on this and I lost it. Just go back 30 seconds and say it again.
So look right here. I got it right here. So
I know,
it
but I
says the
want to know
Lord
his
God.
connection. That's the key I'm looking at. So
Just here, let me back it up.
back
and
it
let's
up.
try
Yeah,
again.
do it again.
So when the serpent talks to Eve, the serpent does not refer to Yahweh Elohim. He
In
just
verse
refers, well, it's verses 1b, the second half of verse 1 through verse 5 or so.
Okay, I got it right there.
Okay. But then it switches right back to Lord God. And through the end of the garden, it's all Yahweh Elohim. So Yahweh Elohim seems to be the God of the garden.
Right.
Okay. But for some reason, when the snake shows up, the snake isn't saying, hey, Yahweh Elohim, Yahweh Elohim. The snake's talking about Elohim. Why? Because the transformation nigh unto an angel of light is the beguilement. What's happening here is, I'm going to sort of use some real broad kind of myth
Okay,
terms.
I think I know where you're going.
Is the bad son has shown up and he's disguising himself as the good
that
son.
makes sense.
He's-
And that's what's going on
is
in Moses.
presenting himself as Yahweh Elohim. Therefore, he can't say, well, didn't Yahweh Elohim say this? Because he's pretending to
he
be
is Yahweh
Elohim.
Yes.
So he's saying Elohim, 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 but he's presenting himself as the gardener, as the God of the garden.
Yes.
Okay.
Which is exactly what Moses says, right? It's in Moses.
So
yes.
So let's just stick here.
Okay,
Let's
okay.
Stick here,
I wanna go to
okay?
Moses.
I got it pulled up.
I don't know if I want to go to Moses. I want to stick here. We're already like 2 hours in.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Just hold on.
we just got to point out this real quick. Moses, at the beginning, Satan goes before Moses and he says, I'm the son of God.
Yes.
And then Moses saes, you're not the son of God. Jesus is the son of God. You're not going to deceive me like you deceived
This is the Thunder
Eve.
Twins. This is the
So,
two sons of the
it just
two
strengthens
sons
that.
of the tree of life.
Yeah.
Verse is that,
They
bro?
are the two goats of the Day of
Moses
Atonement.
won.
They are the two Nehushtanim that sing to each other in Isaiah's calling vision. Okay, they're the two Nehushtans that live in the Holy of Holies and come down.
Yeah.
And here in Eden, what we're seeing is one of them is corrupt, and he's and he's corrupt because he doesn't get to be the boss. He's not Yahweh Elohim who's in charge of the garden, but he comes to Eve pretending he is, and that's why he says, "Well, didn't Elohim do this? Didn't Elohim do that?" He's presenting himself as Yahweh,
He is
good
the
twin.
authority. Yeah.
Now, by the way,
Moses won.
so and maybe we end on this because it's a little metal. Okay, it's a little metal. The punishment scene. So Yahweh catches them, and he catches the other serpent. Okay, and by the way, just to kind of go back to other things we touched on, right? It is true. Genesis 3 never explicitly says that the serpent is Lucifer. This is an idea the Christians had from early on. I think they are right, and I think we should not discount the Christian witness. Like what people who wrote the New Testament thought, they thought it for reasons, right? Now let's see the punishment scene. Okay, so there are curses laid on. I don't want to, I'm not worried about the curses laid on the woman and the man, right? The curse laid on the serpent
In
Verse
14. Genesis 3:14, the Yahweh Elohim said to the serpent, because thou hast done this, thou art cursed above all cattle, and above every beast of the field. Upon thy belly shalt thou go, and dust shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. Now, the standard take on this in commentaries, like almost every one, is The Israelites thought that the serpents used to have legs, and by the way, they're not so wrong. They're related to dinosaurs. They're related to lizards. The Israelites thought that serpents were like geckos or something, and God tears off their legs.
Yeah.
I don't think that is the image that we are actually meant to understand, because the serpents had wings. These are six-winged fiery serpents, the two six-winged fiery serpent sons of the tree of life, the thunder twins, the god of the garden, and his counterfeit brother. Okay, and the brother is now being pinned, right? The cherubim have him, the tough boys of Eden, the gatekeepers, the cops, and they're holding him. And Yahweh Elohim says, upon thy belly shalt thou go. And they're not pulling off his legs to turn him into a snake. They're ripping off his wings one at a time and then hurling him down into the dust as a mere snake.
Wings allow you to ascend. They allow you to ascend, right? And so his ability to ascend is.
And we could go through all of the imagery through here and like think about how we might understand the sort of various kinds of snakiness as being curses or limitations placed on Satan. But that is what I think that scene is supposed to be showing us.
What's the movie that has the dragon? Smog or whatever?
You're talking about The Hobbit?
Yes.
Okay.
Any connection there?
We could have big conversations
We should
about
do
dragons.
a Lord of the Rings nerd out episode where we talk about the scriptural implications of
There's this one line
Lord
in
of the Rings.
Tolkien where he's called a worm.
He's
called a worm, which is so interesting.
We could, there's there's a lot of conversation to have here. We're just not going to be able to have it.
But this is fun.
But again,
we can do this.
it gets back to the title though of the book, The Good and Evil Serpent. Dragons have positive and they have negative connotations.
The title.
And the negative connotations of dragons actually are sort of satanic. The dragon is a hoarder. The dragon collects
he
things.
wants power for himself.
It's not even power.
That's not even his.
He gathers up treasure,
other people's treasure.
and it's treasure that he can't actually use. Smog has no way to go shopping.
He's impotent.
He can't use it. And dragons in many stories also gather up virgins, something else they don't have any use for. Okay? So this is the negative myth image of a dragon is someone who steals, who takes resources for the sake of having resources. And there's a whole resonance in the Book of Mormon with seek riches if it's to help the poor, right? And the dragon is the opposite of that image.
Yeah.
Right? The positive connotations mythologically of the dragon usually are kind of go back to other stuff we said about the snake. The dragon gives movement. There are lots of stories. Aragon is one, or Anne McCaffrey stories where the hero's great power is her or his bond with a dragon, and I can ride the dragon. That's me fly right and
they
escape
can breed
and be
with
powerful.
donkeys. And
The breeding with donkeys is a lesser known.
And Jesus walks in to the holy city on a donkey.
Is there a Shrek? I applaud you for undertaking your own midrash. That was not a direction I thought about taking it.
Yeah.
But
We'll do an episode on that.
but again, to kind of go back to a high level, look, when Jesus compares himself to a serpent, this is the network of images and stories that he is talking about. Is the serpent as divine beings, the serpent as the god of the garden, the serpent is the one who saves from death and heals, purifies you of sin. The serpent as there's a verse in 2 Nephi 9 where Jacob says that he will meet you at the gate when you return, and he will know who you are because the Lord God is his name. Right. He is the God. He is the six-winged serpent. He is the gardener and the God of Eden. And when you come home, that's why he knows you, is because he was there when you were cast out.
Yeah, interesting. That's awesome. And I think as I look through verse 8 to strengthen your point of what you're saying, they partake of the fruit, they recognize they're naked, they make themselves aprons, and then it just says they heard the voice of the Lord. So before they didn't feel guilty or feel bad or anything like that because they thought they were doing what the Lord God had told them to do. Then they're sitting there. Maybe the serpent, maybe the imposter is still before them, and they hear the voice of the Lord. Then they're like, oh no. And it says, and Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord God amongst the trees of the garden.
That's super interesting. So they're like, wait a minute,
this guy.
the guy we have been talking to is the wrong one.
That must have been so scary.
And then they freak out. You know what I mean? And so this is really interesting. I know we could talk about this much more. I hope you guys got pumped. One of the reasons I wanted to do this is because we have referenced this idea in like 5 different videos, but we've never sat down and just try to like put as much into it as we could. And I think we all walked away learning something new.
That's good. Dude, 5.
I love it. Yeah.
That's amazing.
5 references. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching another episode on the Sticky Joseph YouTube channel. We love you, and
turn off YouTube right now and bust open the scriptures to feast upon these amazing things yourself. Please don't let this substitute your scripture study.
let it supplement it. And until next time, stay curious and hungry.